This is weird though that I can't remember the last time I was dressed more formally than you.
Well, I'm sorry. I got up and just decided I'd be sloppy today.
I'm just trying to copy. I'm trying to do that clean living thing that you keep talking about. Maybe I'll keep from getting sick or whatever.
This is a weird.
This is a weird dynamic. I almost feel like we should switch chairs or something.
I don't know.
Well, you got me preaching in a couple weeks. We're going to have to switch chairs then. I'll just sit over there and you can interview
Well, if you
me.
come out like that, they're going to fall in the floor. They're going to say, that preacher, man, he has really influenced Kirkwood.
Yes. Well, there's nothing wrong with...
In a terrible way.
There's nothing wrong with a little formality here. I mean, like, good gracious, like, if you're going to... I didn't used to dress up at all on Sunday. I wouldn't wear a coat. I wouldn't wear a collared shirt, back in the day. And I don't know, somewhere along the way, it was like, man, obviously, I'm not...
That was a secret rebellion against your dad.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I do. You were just living out rebelliously,
Maybe.
subconsciously.
Maybe. That could be true.
And
I don't know.
now you're subconsciously repenting of it.
Maybe so.
And look,
listen, I've repented openly to my dad multiple. Dad watches the show sometimes. So much to him. But it's actually funny because I don't know if I've told you this before, but I grew up in a really contemporary church.
Yeah.
There were a lot of Sundays Dad wouldn't even wear a coat. I think he mostly wears a coat now. I think he and I are kind of the same mind. It's like you get back to, well, you're handling the Word of God. I mean, Obviously I'm not preaching, but I'm still having to handle the Word of God and deliver it to the people through song and all this. Just like got to be some amount of formality to that, right?
Yeah.
Different people have
So
different
y'all were above
things.
the Mason-Dixon line, so we know y'all did stuff different up there.
Well, I got to correct you there, Pastor. We were actually just below the Mason-Dixon line.
And y'all would have, had it not been for Lincoln, literally breaking the Constitution.
He invaded Maryland because he
did.
was worried about, that's a big part of Maryland history.
It is. And see, people don't know that stuff anymore.
That's the thing. Everyone's like, you Yankee, and sometimes they'll use an adjective before you Yankee. And I'm just like, I'm one of you. Maryland is part of the south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
Give me a little credit here.
Well, we had to slip it. I think we're going to have to slip it down below Virginia.
Well, it won't be a line anymore. It'll be just whatever, That's the thing. It's very convenient there, the top of Maryland.
Washington has ruined Virginia. But anyway.
What a shame.
That's another day.
Things have
Another
changed.
topic for another day. Hey, by the way, I think I'm going to get out of Exodus this coming Sunday.
I heard
think
you
I'm
say
going
that.
to Luke 10.
Ooh, okay.
To Luke 10, 38 to 42.
Let me look that up here.
Mary and Martha, Lazarus. You don't read
You're
about
doing
Lazarus. Well, you don't. No.
Yes.
You don't read about Lazarus in this whole confrontation between Martha and Mary. Do you know why? I've got two older sisters.
Uh-oh. You're going there?
Lazarus was a smart man. When your sisters go to fighting and
You
fussing,
stay out of it.
you stay quiet.
Yeah,
you just be quiet.
Be by the wayside.
Blend
I
it
hear
into
that.
the wallpaper.
You think they had wallpaper back then
know.
in the first century?
I don't know, but they had murals.
So you're not doing the resurrection of Lazarus?
No. This is the confrontation between Martha and Mary. But it really is a great word about worship.
That's really interesting. Okay, I'm going to have to read this and think about this week. Because you said that yesterday. You said, I'm going to go, because you talked about how Exodus is all wisdom and worship. That's what the Lord's been revealing to you. Mm-hmm. So you're going there this week.
Yeah, it's Mother's Day, and I just kind of thought, I'll pull off. I don't normally do that. I don't normally peel off and do something. I stay in the series, but I'm going to peel off of it this Sunday.
Well, but it's tangentially related to the series, right? That's kind of what you're thinking.
Yeah, the emphasis is still worship. Yeah.
Well, as always, I really appreciate it when you take us in that worship direction. I've really been feeling convicted about that. Just that especially times of corporate worship, that I feel like and you can disagree with me, but I feel like in the more contemporary church, perhaps we have this imminence. We understand the imminence of God. God's right here. God's right with us. We sing that song, Waymaker. Mm-hmm. You're here working in our midst. We worship you. But I feel like sometimes we lose the transcendence of God. You know, everybody's dressed sort of casually, which, again, nothing wrong with that. We're dressed sort of casually, we're laughing, we're hugging, that sort of thing. And we almost forget that there's this vertical dimension to worship where God is impossibly more powerful than we could imagine. So, I love that we're going through this stuff in Exodus, thinking about God on top of Sinai. Oh, yeah, and you said that yesterday, how the people were overwhelmed by the voice of God. Mm-hmm. They said, could you put a stop to this? Just let God talk to you.
Yeah.
Don't let him talk to us. It sounds like a trumpet blaring in my ear,
Yeah.
you know.
It shook him up pretty bad, you know. And Moses, like I said, there's a passage in Hebrews that really talks about Moses not wanting to go up either. Or you get the impression that Moses was trembling and was afraid as well.
Well, of course, he had a proper fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, when you said that yesterday about the people complaining about the voice of God, all I could think of was Josh Pike. Moses was the first sound guy, Josh. The people are coming to him complaining about the decibel levels. Hey, can you turn this down? Amen. Turn it down. The voice of God is 150 decibels. Turn it down, please.
You see how you can take Scripture and just turn it any kind of way you want to. Hey. Well, that was what they were. They trembled and stood at a distance.
Yeah,
and they said, "Speak to us yourself. We'll listen, but let not God speak to us, or we will die."
That is interesting, and that is distinctive. You had us read that there at the beginning of 20. Mm-hmm. God spoke all these words.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, there's a lot of places, even in Exodus, where it's "Thus saith the Lord, thus saith the Lord,"
right?
And that usually means a prophet is speaking, a messenger is speaking on behalf of the Lord.
Right.
But this is literally God's voice speaking over the people, and I had never understood that before.
Yeah.
So the way that you put that together,
and they're standing really off from the mountain, so you know that thing's thundering down from that mountain. I mean, you can understand people being terrified.
It's
all of the lightning flashes, the sound of trumpet, the mountain smoke, all of that kind of stuff. They thought, this thing's just going to explode.
Man, I'm just trying to visualize it in my mind, just thinking what that must have been like to look up on the mountain. I guess it must have felt, in some respects, like watching a volcanic eruption, like almost just that fear in your heart, like if what's happening up there comes down here to me, I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm dead meat.
Right.
Which, ironically, when God does come down in the flesh, it's the exact opposite. In the New Testament, when Christ comes, he comes down in complete grace. And actually, like, that's when you gave us a really interesting mental exercise. Wow, we got into the text really early today. I'm kind of proud of us. We didn't talk about Andy Griffith. We didn't, no.
No, and I'm back there. I was back there looking for a clip to give Jared for Sunday morning. I can't find it.
Andy,
but anyway,
I got to talk to you about my message on the 28th. By the way,
okay.
I need a few more Andy Griffith illustrations. It's
okay.
not coming together. So you gave us a really interesting mental exercise, and I wrote this down. And you said, "What if God had given the Israelites
law first?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
What if he gave the law while they were still in Egypt, before he gave them any grace? I want you to take us back through that and like have a little bit of discussion there, because that is a fascinating thought.
Well, the interesting thing to me is you go back to you can go back further than that, but if you go back to chapter 18 and you see Jethro, who we would say is saved, becomes, is converted here.
Yes.
Which is clear. It is a conversion. He turns from being the priest of the Midianites, which they worshipped Baal, and he comes to say that only God, only Jehovah, only Yahweh is God. So there's the convert. That's grace. You see all of that. And then he turns around and God uses him to give a word of grace to Moses, saying, "Moses, you can't keep doing this.
And Moses,
you're going to kill yourself doing this. There's an easier way." So that was grace. You come to chapter 19 and we talk about the tenderness of God, the two aspects of God's nature. There is the love. He's love. God's word tells us God is love, and it says God is holy.
Yep.
So there's the tenderness which is grace, and the holiness, which is grace. How are we, when you come to holiness, where's the grace in that? How in the world do we have a relationship with a holy God other than the grace of God through Jesus Christ? That's how. So even in his holiness, there is grace. And then you come to chapter 20, and in the first 2 verses, he's laying out. That's what I tried to show.
Right.
He's just laying out grace on top of grace in verse 1 and verse 2.
I already did this for you. And he's using that basically as justification to say, and now I say to you this. This is how you, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Here are the commandments you can show love back to me.
Yeah. And once you experience grace, the 10 Commandments, you see in a little different light. This is what I want to do.
That's important.
This is where I want to go. This is how I want to live my life. It's not that we do it perfectly, because we certainly do not. But the desire of our heart, we want to take off the old clothes. We want to put on the righteousness of Christ. That's why I flipped over rapidly to Paul in Ephesians chapter 4, take off this old, now that we've experienced grace. Because you no longer, the law is no longer hateful, but it really becomes the desire of your heart to be holy like God is holy. And this is the heart of God.
I think that's where we got to camp out, that the law is not hateful. Because especially like if you're in an evangelistic conversation, that's one of the things that people will throw back at you. How can God make all these requirements? Or God bases, your salvation. People have this misunderstanding. God bases your salvation on whether you're going to follow him perfectly according to this law. And you say, whoa, you got it all out of order. Because God approached his people. I mean, that's Exodus chapter 2. God heard, he saw, he knew, he understood all the cries of the people. And he did, and you just listed off how many dozens of things he did for them before he then says, all right, now this is how you shall live going forward.
It's kind of in a much lesser way, in a much lesser scale, it's kind of like marrying your wife. You marry the girl you're in love with, the two of you are in love, but she likes to do certain things that you really don't care for. I'm just going to use exercise for one. My wife runs every day. She's out running right now. And she comes and she's tried through come on and please, let's go for a walk, let's go for a walk, let's go for a walk, let's go for a walk. Well, now I have so gotten into the routine of this
going for a
that
walk.
I don't tell her, but I really do
enjoy it now.
Yes, it's something that I enjoy doing. And she says, I try to do this because this is what's healthy for you. The doctors are telling you to do that, blah, 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 blah. Well, it becomes the guardrail for life. Well, that's the law. Once I come to Christ, I see the law a little differently. It's not this horrible thing that wants to ruin my life. It's this wonderful guardrail that helps me live a fulfilling and satisfying life.
That has to be what David understood when he was writing, especially 119, and you did a study on that last year. Oh, how I love your law. Well, he says it in Psalm 19 as well. It's like honey. That's how sweet it is to me. He recognizes that, and sure, he's a man. I'm sure at some point he's like, well, this is frustrating, or I don't want to do this, or the desires of my flesh are overwhelming, all that. But at the end of it, he understands, no, this is the best way to live.
Yeah, it is. It's really like, I can hear my dad, I told you, if you did that, that's what was going to happen, So, and the law does that. However, the law's taken on a little different view in the Christian's life.
Oh, okay.
Before, it was always the master, it was always drudgery. It was always, something that it convicted you. Well, it still does convict us, but all of that's it's kind of changed. It now becomes something that I know this pleases the Father and it is good for me. So I long to live that way. I long to be like that.
I pray that the Lord helps me with that too. Gardening. That's the one for me.
I hate yard work. I hate it. My wife loves it.
Yeah. I like normal yard work. Gardening's the one that gets to me.
Yeah.
But yesterday my wife had me out there and I was getting the raised beds ready and I was
But you knew you were pleasing her.
Yeah.
She was so happy with that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's a really good illustration.
Yeah.
Hey, you didn't.
And so you do it because you want to please her.
Of course I do. And I tell her that. You know,
And because you're afraid of her. That's me too.
Is that why you let her get that
that's
extra
right.
dog? You let her get the new dog. You're
What
just
can you
scared
say?
to death
Just
of her.
stand over there and keep your mouth shut.
You should have given me a warning yesterday. I'm changing the subject a little bit. You should have given me a warning yesterday because you went full on independent fundamental Baptist.
Did I really?
Yes.
What did I do?
Grits on top of grits.
Yeah,
on
that's the
top
way you
of
understand grace upon grace. That's what Paul says, grace upon grace. So that's kind of like grits. Because you get to the end of your plate, and man, you think, gosh, this stuff is so good. I wish she had a little more, and she comes back around with that pot, stirring it. You want some more? And I'm thinking, oh, yes. Give me grits on top of my grits.
You killed my wife with that one. I have not seen her laugh that hard in a while. Because it was like full stop. Now think about grits, and everyone's like, where is that in the text? Oh, that was a good one. I was thinking about we got to retweet a few more because everybody's everyone's so fighting so much with the SBC. What they need is just some good clips.
I didn't know that. Oh gosh, that's news to me.
Quit it. What people need is some good clips of old-fashioned, independent, fundamental Baptist guys. That's what we got to do. We got
just go to sucking air.
we got to find some more of those. I'll tweet them out. You're too controversial right now. I'll tweet them out for you. What else we got to talk about? Let me see. Hey, do you have anything that you left out of the message you really wanted to say? Anything like that?
No, I've already been up. In fact, I started yesterday afternoon looking at this passage in Luke, so I've honestly forgotten what I did yesterday.
Well, I got a couple more things we can chat about. Here, I'll say. Well, we'll finish up. I got a more spiritual note we can finish up on. But, But first, hey, this cell phone swabbing thing, that's
pretty wild, isn't it? Now listen, I'm going to tell you, they're going to do that at the airport. At some point, that's how they're going to check you. They're going to get this thing, and they're going to swab that deal, and they can tell everything about you. I mean, it'll be a whole catalog of stuff.
And you know what? I totally believe it.
Do you know that's what they're doing when they pull your bags off and they swab it?
Yes.
They open it up and they do that? They're checking to see if there's any kind of, if there's been any gunpowder in there, if there's been any fertilizer in there, if there's been any, anything that would set off that thing that, well, this is a part of a makeup of an explosive.
Well, and see, that's always the problem is that, I always thought, well, that's reasonable. I don't, if somebody's got bomb parts, I want them to find it.
Yeah.
But you're talking about how it's so easy for them to get even additional information and build a profile of who you are as a person.
That's exactly right. They're doing that now. They can. I guarantee you, there is a site somewhere that knows what type of toothpaste y'all buy.
Oh boy.
Your toilet paper, what type of flour you use, what type of. I saw that years ago.
Well,
a guy came in. He says, "Look, he worked for somebody. I don't know." He said, "Look," he says, "there's already a profile built on you." He says, "I can tell what you get at the grocery store."
I completely agree. Well, it's just like when you go online and they go to confirm your identity, and they're like, "Make sure that these are the last 6 addresses that you've lived at," and you're looking at it like, "Wow, you guys have all that?" And they're like, "And have you owned all these cars, right?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess I have." But they don't know what kind of toothpaste I use because Ross Robinson gave me all my toothpaste, and we all know he's off the grid. So that guy had a serious toothpaste collection. Ross, if you're watching this from overseas, thank you for that toothpaste. Still using it. I'll be using it. I'll probably be using that toothpaste even when Pastor's done preaching Exodus. That's how long it's going to last.
Wow,
That's going to last me a while. Let's finish up on a more spiritual note. Hey, I loved this. You came out the gate with this. Just how personal God is. Mm-hmm. And I love it when we get to hear this from you because you talked about how even the grammar, even the tense of the grammar is in the inspired word. And God says, I am your God. And he doesn't say it. He doesn't say, I'm all y'all's God.
Yeah.
He says, I am your God. And it's the personal singular.
Yeah, second person.
Second person, I'm sorry. Yeah, you'd think I would have gotten that, with all my Hebrew training.
There.
Do you have anything else you want to add to
No,
that? That's
no.
it?
That's a great little thing to know about that phrase that you'll read over and over, and you're tempted to just skip by it and think, well, that's just an introduction to something. I am the Lord your God. No. It's a very personal word from God to you.
Well, it's easy to skip over in the English especially. That's why you can't just simply depend. Please don't do word studies on the English Bible. If you're going to do a word study, go back to the original languages. You're just going to shoot yourself in the foot if you do the word study in the English.
But see, you knew that because that's Hebrew.
Of course I did.
You knew it. You knew it.
Shalom Aleichem. God bless you. We didn't even talk about Kevin Bacon with Bernie Madoff. I had all that down, but it's
Was that not wild?
That was out
Your
there.
nature, human nature, the human heart does not change. Does not change.
I just feel sorry for Kevin Bacon.
He
Lost
just
all his money.
Yeah, he did. He said he did. I saw him in an interview. It said he lost everything. He had everything invested with Bernie Madoff.
That's actually.
But it's kind of hard to feel sorry for a guy that gets what, $20 million a movie.
Well, he better keep.
Would you like to have a $20 million payday this year?
I don't know what I'd even do.
I'd just like to be the coach at Auburn for one football game and get fired. Halfway through the game's fired. Fine with me. Just get fired. Man, you're set for life.
I love that. I gotta text it to you. When Rick and Bubba, it was after Ed Orgeron got fired from LSU, and Rick and Bubba did a fake interview with the fake Ed Orgeron. Have you guys seen this?
Can you understand anything?
No, well, that was the whole point.
Go Tigers.
The only thing you could understand was every time he said $17 million. Every time, because that's exactly what he's getting paid for doing nothing. Good job by you, Ed
He did
Orgeron.
something all right. That was the problem. He did something.
Well, I tell you what, Pastor, sometimes you and me don't see eye to eye, but at the end of this podcast, we can definitely say go Tigers, right?
Yep.
Because that's your wife's team, that's my wife's team.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Look at this. Look at that.
I can't believe this. Yeah, prayers for the Northcutt family.
The phone's already going off.
They saw it out there. Pastor, what's wrong? Who
I
died?
talked to him. Mr. Northcutt.
Yeah,
the
Lloyd
other day.
Northcutt, 102 years old,
Yeah,
almost
I talked to
103.
him the other day. Says he never misses a Sunday watching us.
I got to talk
He's
to him
in
as
Florida.
well.
Great guy. Great fella.
I hope I get to shake his hand today. Got the funeral for Miss Claudine, beloved saint of God. I think she was 91 years old. His wife passed away. And faithful members.
Faithful members. They joined when Dr. Moore was here.
Wow, even before Calvin.
Yes. Yeah,
Wow, the
Dr. Moore was
BC era, before Calvin. Oh, boy. Yeah, we've really jumped the shark. Love you guys. Say goodbye, Pastor.
Goodbye, Pastor.